Okay guys, in this video we're going to be talking about evaluating functions or giving value to a function graphically. So basically if they give you only a graph, so a graph only, and they want to figure out what are the inputs and the outputs of some function, you could actually figure that out with just given the graph. It's actually, some people consider this to be a lot easier than doing it algebraically. So if you're evaluating functions algebraically, you got to either plug in or set it equal to something. If you're doing it graphically, well, all you got to do is look at the graph. So I got two examples here ready to go for you guys. We're going to work through them right now. And let's first deal with example number one. So don't worry about example number two right now. So we have this graph of h of x, right? So we read it like a book from left to right. So this graph on the bottom left, so it starts here and then it starts going up and then it goes down, then it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes up again from left to right. So the domain would be the input. So we have to find the input if the output is equal to the certain numbers that we have here. So just to make it clear and to make it easy for you guys, just so you can see what's going on, the input or the domain is always going to be the x-axis, right? So we're finding the input. And the range, if you remember, the range will always be the y-axis. So here we're finding the input, or we're finding what goes inside of this so we can figure out the corresponding output. Okay? So same as the domain is my x, the range is going to be my y. But for now, let's highlight the y-axis and see that they actually give me some numbers here that are corresponding to that y-axis. Okay, so for the range, you're looking at the output of the y-axis. Now the input is given, but not the output. So the output is actually what you're trying to find. The input here is given, so that goes on the x. So I'm going to try to color code it for you so it makes sense what we're actually doing here. Okay, let's do first the left-hand side. So finding the input. So what they're saying is, what input would give you the output of 2? So if you look at the y-axis, so that's here, right, the range, the output of 2 would be here. Now I have to look at the value of the function at that number. So the function's on the right side, which is right there, right? If I line it up with my x, my input or my x would be positive 1. So all I have to do is plug in and figure out that my answer for that would be 1. So line it up, line it up, line it up. Okay? So let's do the next one. H of what number would give you the value of 0 as the output? So H of what number would give you the value of 0 as the output? So we have the outputs here, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 0 is going to be here. Notice for this, I could have more than one answer. So I could have this answer. My input should be, or could be 0, but my input could also be -2. Either one of those answers is correct, so it doesn't have to be one specific answer. The input could be 0, or the input could be -2. I'm going to go ahead and write -2 just to be different. H of what number would give you 4? So if you look at the output, look for the function. It's not on the left side, right? So it's not over there. I'm looking for it on the right side, which if you line it up, it's going to be here. And then go down to the x-axis or the domain, and you could see that the value of the domain or the input is equal to +2. H of what number is equal to 5? So go up to +5 on the y-axis. Look for the function. Oh wait, there's nothing here, nothing here, nothing here, up until you get to here. So the input for that would be +5. So we're going to say that H of 5 equals +5. What input value would give you the output of -3? So same idea here. We go to the -3. There's no function here, so we got to go to the left side. So line it up. -3 is right there. The value of the input is -3. So it happens to be the same number. Not always going to be the case. Okay, so line it up. The x's and the y's, that's basically how we evaluate functions graphically. So now let's do the same thing but backwards. So same way that they could have you guys find the input, they can have you guys find the output or the range given the input. So basically they say h of what equals, h of 1, excuse me, equals what number? So if I plug in 1 or x equals 1 into function h, my answer or my output is going to be 2. This time we're looking, they give us the x and we're trying to figure out the y. If I plug in -2 into the function h, what's my output going to be? So go to the -2 on the x-axis, right, to input. It looks like that's going to not go anywhere on the y-axis. It's going to be y equals 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So this is going to be lined up at the 0. H of 4 is equal to what? So if you plug in 4 on function h, this lines up here. It's not a very nice number, but it looks like you can figure out that it's like about 3.8. So I'm going to go ahead and say 3.8 or so. H of 5 is equal to what number? So if you go to the 5, it looks like that one lines up with 5. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5. H of -3 is equal to what number? So -3, so important, right? We're not here. We're actually left 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3. So that will be right here. And that lines up with the -3. Okay? So they can give you the input and you can find the output, or they can give you the output and you can find the input graphically. All you got to do is line up the graph correspondingly. All right. That being said, let's do this massive one, which it looks more intense than it actually really is. It's actually not that bad. So we're finding the domain or the input, and then we're finding the range or the output for these specific graphs. So I'm going to go ahead and color code it again for you guys. So the domain is the input, which is all these numbers. So find the input, find the input, find the input, find the input. And then for these ones, it's the range. So we're finding the output of all of these numbers here. The thing that's important about this particular example is that we don't have only one graph. We have 2 graphs. So be very careful. So there's graph k of x, function k of x, which is this parabola pointing downwards, so this U shape. And then function L of x, which is this line. So those 2 different functions, we got to be very, very particular and very careful about that, because depending on what letter they put, that's the function that they're talking about. For example, L of what number gives you -5? So we plug in what number for the output to be -5. So be very careful. This time we're looking at the outputs and we're trying to find the input, right? So kind of like we did for the first example. That means that we're looking at these numbers, these numbers, so on the y-axis, to be able to find the input numbers. Okay, let me finish highlighting this real quick so it's out of the way. Okay, done. So let's do the first one. So -5. So we go to the -5. Notice that I have 2 lines, right? So be very careful. I have the k of x function and I have the L of x function. They want L, so we actually are looking for the blue one here. So at -5, my value of the function is going to be the input of -1. So I'm going to put a -1 right in there. Next one, at -1, what is the value of the L function? Well, L function, the input is going to be right at x equals 0. I'm going to put 0 right on there. At y equals 3, what is my value of the L function? So at y equals 3, I'm going to have to go to the right a little bit. The input value for that L function would be 1. So I'm going to put a 1 right in there. At this time, k of what number would give you 0? So I go to the 0, which is right there at the origin. This time I'm looking for k. So I have 2 options. I have +2 that it could be, and I have -2 that it could be. Either answer is correct. You can have more than one answer, which is fine. So pick one. It doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm going to go ahead and go with 2. K of what number would give you -3 as the output? So go to the -3 on the output. Now I'm looking for k. Again, I have 2 answers. I get the +3 and I have the -3. I chose the positive last time, so I'm going to pick -3 this time. There is 2 correct answers. That is fine. You can have more than one correct answer. K of what number is equal to 4? So we go to the output of 4. K, well, there's only one point at the 4, which is right here, at x equals 0. So the input number for that would be 0. Okay? Hopefully this is making sense and it's not as bad as you thought. This time we're finding the range, or finding the output. So they want us to plug in these numbers, -1, 0, 1, -2, -3, positive, and then 0, and then try to figure out what is the output depending on which letter they're talking about, which function they're talking about. So I'm going to cover this up for right now, so that way it doesn't confuse you. So L of -1, when we plug in -1 into function L, so that's the blue one, so go down towards the blue one, the output of that would be -5. So this first answer is -5. Make sense? L of 0, so we go to the 0, look for function L, which is right there, the blue one. So that is going to be right here at the -1. So I'm going to write down -1. L of 1 is equal to what output? So we go to the 1, look for function L, which is right up there. The output for that would be 3. K of -2, so go to the -2 on the input, look for function K, which is right there where my pen is. That's exactly where it's at. That's going to be the output of the Y of 0. K of 3, so go to the 3 as the input, look for function K, which is the bottom one, the red one, and the output for that function is going to be -3. And then lastly, K of 0, go to the 0 for the input, function K is the top one, so it's going to be at output 4. So that one's going to be a 4. Okay, I don't think you guys were able to see the last two, but basically that's what I just wrote down. So K of 3 is equal to -3, K of 0 is equal to 4. Sorry about that. Now, the other thing they could ask is they could say, so example number 3, what is L of -1 plus K of 0 plus L of 1 minus K of 2? So they can give you some equation that they want you to evaluate. But if you think about it, you already did all the hard work, right? So you already know what all these numbers are. L of -1, well, you already found that. If you look at this function up here, L of -1 is equal to -5. So what they're actually saying here is, what is -5 plus K of 0? Well, look for K of 0. You already found that. It's actually 4. So I'm going to plug in 4 right there. Plus L of 1. Again, you already found that. L of 1 is equal to 3. So we can just write 3 right in there. And then minus K of 2. So K of 2, we already found that. That is equal to 0. So we're going to say minus 0. So what they're actually asking you, even though it looks weird like this in function notation, so what is L evaluated at -1 plus K evaluated at 0 plus L evaluated at +1 minus K evaluated at +2? You already did all the hard work. So in other words, what they're saying is, what is -5 plus 4 plus 3 minus 0? If you evaluate that, this becomes 7 minus 5, which is 2. Okay? I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I'll see you guys on the next one.